Am I in the wrong for telling my husband's affair baby's family to either come to get the kid or I'm calling CPS? I'm 53 female and soon-to-be ex-husband Roger, 47, whom I forgave for his affair, came home with a baby 4 months ago. His girlfriend, 22, could not handle it anymore and brought the baby to him at work and left. To the best of his knowledge, she's in Spain. I allowed him to stay so long as I didn't have to do anything. Anything. Well, about a month ago, Roger had a heart attack. It didn't kill him, more's the pity, but he is very weak and incapable of doing anything for himself. Since he isn't up and about, he cannot care for this child. He also can't drop off and pick up his son at daycare. I've been helping, but I'm done. My kids are full grown. I shouldn't be having grandkids anytime soon. I do not have any desire to care for a baby. I told Roger that I want a divorce and I contacted the mother's parents. I know the father through friends. I said that they had until Friday to come get their grandchild or I was calling Child Protective Services. They just left with the baby, but they scolded me for being so cold towards a baby that had done me no harm. Roger is recovering and I will be moving out. The house is in his name, but I have never contributed to it. I have the equivalent of 22 years of rent and interest put away, and as per our prenup, my savings are my own. I work and I don't need anything out of this marriage except myself. My kids tried telling me to stay and help their father. I said that they're welcome to come over and help him with cleaning himself and the baby. Both declined what I felt was a fair offer. I don't feel that I'm acting badly. However, Roger, our children, his child's family, and a few mutual friends think that I am. So, am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for telling my family if they're going to have a 15-minute prayer before my son's birthday party dinner and lecture everyone about God to just not show up? I'm a single father of 3. My family, mother, sisters, and grandparents became extremely involved with the Christian church over 2 years ago. So much so that it's become a chore just to visit any of them since all they want to talk about is their religion. When we get together, it's never, how have you been? How's work? How are you? It's always, when are you going to join us at church? The Holy Spirit really helped me this week. Have you read the Bible I gave you? I try to now distance myself from them as much as I can and just spend time with my kids. Last year, my mother asked if she could take my kids to get ice cream and go to the park. Little did I know, it was a church-related event and my daughter quickly called me to pick them up because a man was speaking into a microphone and people were fainting all around them and crying to God. That was the last time I let them go with my family alone. My birthday was in April and I had friends, family, and coworkers over just to relax and take time off, swim a little, and play some backyard games. When it came time to eat, my mother took it upon herself to make a huge speech about how it was and is difficult raising a son that does not believe in religion and her testimony that God is the way. I felt the ambience change and everyone get uncomfortable. After that, I tried to blow it off and continued to entertain people that were there. That's when my family brought out their pamphlets and began going to everyone and preaching to them, talking to them for 10 minutes at a time. I pulled my mom to the side and told her this is not the place nor the time for all of that. She apologized and they left soon after. My son's birthday is coming up. I was at my mom's for Memorial Day and she quickly asked me if it was okay to speak to some people about the Lord. I took it upon myself to inform everyone if they're going to act like a congregation to a child's birthday party to just not show up, period. Now I have them calling and texting me saying I should be ashamed of myself for denying the Lord to people. I honestly just want to cut them all off because these past couple of years have been insufferable. So, am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for flipping out on my mother-in-law and husband for eating all the food before I had eaten? Ever since I gave birth 4 months ago, so I have 4 kids total, my mother-in-law has been showing up whenever she wants, and whenever she's here, she always helps herself to whatever she wants. She has never offered to help me or the baby in any way, shape, or form. She's basically here to see her son, and that's it. Like, about 3 weeks ago, I made a small pot of coffee, enough for 2 cups. I want to go nurse the baby while waiting, and at some point my mother-in-law shows up and lets herself inside. When I came out, she had drank the entire pot. I had no coffee grounds left. Or she's eaten my leftovers straight out of the fridge multiple times. And she's always like, thanks for the food, coffee, as if I offered it to her when I absolutely didn't because all she's doing is making my life miserable. I told my husband to speak to her about it and he told me that he did, and I truly don't think so. I spoke up last time when she was here, 3 weeks ago, and told her that she needed to stop helping herself because she's eating and drinking stuff that I wanted and or made for myself. She said, oh, I'm sorry, and then stopped coming around for a while. Well, today I made 4 homemade pizzas. I told the kids to come help themselves to dinner and that I had to go get the baby down for a nap real quick and we'd be right back. Well, it took me 45 minutes because the baby is fussy. She just had shots. I come back and all of the pizza was gone and my mother-in-law and husband are sitting there chowing away. I just said, are you effing kidding me right now? My husband asked what was going on and I said, you guys couldn't have even left me a effing slice? Sure, let's feed the effing neighborhood before I even go to eat. That's so awesome of you guys. Thanks. And start to walk off. My oldest son, 13, comes in and he's like, Mom, I left you out a plate. I put it right on the counter, and walks over to grab it, and lo and behold, that's gone too. Mother-in-law said, I thought it was left over from dinner. So my son's apologizing to me even though he did nothing wrong when my mother-in-law and husband just stand there. They literally aren't saying anything. So I looked at both of them and said, you both need to leave now. My husband then decides to speak, saying it was an honest mistake and that no one meant any harm, and said I was making a mound out of a molehill, which honestly just pissed me off further. So I snapped again and said, yeah, except every time your effing mother comes here, I end up going without because she eats or drinks my portion of everything. But sure, let's define someone taking food out of my mouth, shall we? His mother just storms out of the house and my husband looks at me like I'm insane. So I say, quick, chase her. and walk out. My husband thinks that I'm effing mental and that this all could have been resolved if I had acted like an adult. He won't come home, but at this point, I don't even want him to come home because it means his mother will stay away. So, am I in the wrong?
Am I the arsehole for beating up my sister? Storytime. Just dropped so much cleansing balm on my top, so please ignore that. Me and my boyfriend Steve have been together for about 4 years now. However, we've known each other since we were around like 14 and 15. My sister Amy has had crushes on every single one of my partners that I've ever brought home. So naturally, I've always tried to keep her away from my boyfriends. Because, you know, it's weird. I knew that my sister Amy had a crush on my boyfriend Steve from when we were friends. I didn't really care because she was so young at the time. She was literally 8 years old. You know, like, my boyfriend isn't a creep. However, the problem came when Amy turned 18. At this point, I had moved out, but Amy would always encourage me to come back home and come round for dinner, knowing that I would bring Steve. On my mum's birthday one year, I was invited round for dinner. We were going to have a takeaway, and of course, I brought Steve. So the party was going really, really well. All of the actual adults were drinking and just chatting. We were playing some games. And then, just as we were getting ready to leave, Amy was like, "Oh, Steve, I have a gift for you." It was a gift basket full of Steve's favourite food, drinks, games. And when Steve looked confused, it got so much worse. I'm using a different cleansing balm than normal. I can't see a thing. Steve was in shock. He didn't know what to do. He just looked at me. I looked at Steve. I looked at Amy. Steve looked at me. He looked at Amy. And at this point, Amy had started to cry. Next thing I know, walks up to him and just starts making out with him. And at that point, I just lost it. I'm sorry. I pushed Amy to the ground and just went ham. I just couldn't deal with the fact she had made my boyfriend feel so uncomfortable. So eventually my mum and dad pulled us apart. Her nose was bleeding pretty bad. They then started screaming at me, saying that they would be pursuing and pressing charges. Okay. And that was when I started screaming at my parents because they had enabled her behaviour for years. They then called me an arsehole. And I thought, right, well, it's your turn then. Dad was saying how she'd always been a good kid. And that was when I turned to my dad and was like, I don't know how you can comment about what she was like as a child because you were the most absent parent I've ever seen. Mum says don't speak to your dad like that. I said, Mum, stop being such a whiny little bitch. I went through hell living with these people and I was already somewhat low contact at this point. Of course, Steve is on my side, but the rest of my family are calling me an arsehole. So now I don't know what to do because that was the evening that I was going to tell my family that I was pregnant, but now I'm not sure if I even want them in my kid's life anymore.
Am I in the wrong for breaking up with my boyfriend because he ignored my medical emergency and didn't visit me in the hospital? I, 25 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 27 male, for 2 years. He's been my first ever boyfriend because not a lot of guys seem interested in me. Overall, our relationship has been good, but something happened recently that made me question everything. I started feeling severe abdominal pain while we were at his apartment. The pain became so intense that I could hardly move or speak. I told my boyfriend that I needed to go to the hospital because something felt very wrong. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and that it was probably just something I ate. Despite my pleas, he refused to take me to the hospital or even call an ambulance. He suggested that I lie down and wait it out. The pain kept getting worse and I was scared, throwing up and crying. After an hour of begging him to help me, I finally managed to call a friend who immediately came over and took me to the ER. It turns out that I had pancreatitis, which required immediate medical attention. The doctor said it could have been life-threatening if I had waited any longer. My friend stayed with me the entire time, but my boyfriend didn't even check in to see how I was doing until the next day. He sent a brief text saying that he hoped I was feeling better. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. He didn't even bother to come see me. When I confronted him about his lack of support and concern, he got defensive, saying I was being dramatic and that he didn't think it was that serious. He accused me of making him look bad in front of my friends for something that wasn't a big deal. I decided to break up with him because I can't be with someone who doesn't take my health seriously or support me in an emergency. Now, after we've been apart for a week, some of our mutual friends are saying that I overreacted and that he just made a mistake. They think I should give him another chance, that he was busy and it wasn't as big of a deal as I made it out to be. So, am I in the wrong?
Am I the arsehole for telling my boyfriend that he can't invite his friend to our wedding? Story time. I am marrying my best friend Steve very, very soon, and he is literally the love of my life. But I've always had a bit of an issue with one of his friends, who we'll call Amy. Amy and Steve have been friends for about 8 years now, and they are part of like a bigger friendship group. Amy has always been very insistent that there is nothing going on between them. But I know, you know when you just know the girls that get it. In all honesty, I'd actually prefer if she just wasn't friends with him. That would be ideal. They mainly communicate by sharing like little memes and gifs, which Let's grow up, guys, come on. And then they'll occasionally catch up for coffee, one-on-one, which personally I feel is quite inappropriate. The other time is when they're in the big friendship group, and don't get me wrong, I'm always invited to this, but I will never attend purely because I can't be bothered to see Amy. So when we started planning the marriage, we started to think about what we would want, what we wouldn't want, and I just outright said one thing I don't want is Amy to be at our wedding. To which Steve responded that he didn't think it was fair to exclude just one person from his friendship group. And I was like, why do you think that's an issue? To which Steve responded, not invite her just because you think that there is something going on with her. I honestly believe this is so unfair. In all honesty, I can't believe he would reject my feelings in this way. The fact that he won't let me have my way on this is making me reconsider the whole marriage. Bit overdramatic. So we ended up having a massive argument on this, and I decided to go over to my friend's house, just have the debrief. So I'm sat with the boys talking about it all, and they said, do I not think I've got a couple of double standards here? Which really confused me, not gonna lie. So anyway, we still can't come to a conclusion on whether or not Amy is gonna come to the wedding. So TikTok, I now turn to you to help me with my marriage. I very rarely give my opinion at the end of these story times. However, this one, it's not sitting well with me. I think there's massive double standards. Like the person pointed out that you are allowed your guy friends and you went straight to your guy friends after you had an argument. Interesting. And I'm sure they're allowed at the wedding. And I'm sure you haven't done anything with them. I feel like we could get quite a hung jury on this one because she's obviously got reason for why she is suspicious of Amy. But also, girl, without evidence, you don't really have a leg to stand on. I'm so sorry. What do you think, guys?